How's it going, everyone? JC here again today, and I'm talking about attaching even more Fanatec gear to the Playseat challenge, specifically the Fanatec Shifter SQ. And I'm talking also today about a little product that I'm sure a lot of you already know about called the Lowdown Shifter. I would show the mounts, but I already have them attached here. And there is a double mount system that you can actually use to attach this thing. And it's very sturdy, as you can see. And today I just want to go through how I did it and just the process for doing it and how you can all benefit from it. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is talk about the parts that you actually receive in the package. So for the double mount system for the Fanatec Shifter SQ, you get two of these mounts here from the Lowdown Shifter. They come pre-installed with these two rubber inserts here. One is a little thicker, one's a little thinner. But you know what? The good thing about these is that if you want to change the height or adjustment to the tightness around your mounting point, you can easily just pop this out, pop those guys out like that, and you can switch them around. They also come with two of each of the different types of rubber. So as you can see here, there are two thin, and then if you feel like you want a thicker mount, comes with two thicker pieces of rubber here for grip. That basically you're going to go around the rod here. You're going to clamp it down like that, and it's going to hold as you tighten the two screws that go on the top mounting surface here, on the top surface here. As you tighten those down, these two pieces are going to come flush. It's going to actually tighten, put more pressure on the rubber grips, and as these rubber grips get compressed, it's going to actually be very tight around the rod. And then you won't have a bunch of lateral movement. You won't have any movement if tightened correctly. And from there, what you're going to do, you see that you have this little slot here that slides in there, and it comes with your screw here with your washers. You're going to put your screw through your washers here like so. It's going to bolt into the shifter. The good thing about this shifter is that it actually comes with a bunch of these little guys here, these T-nuts. Comes with like 6 of them. And what you're gonna do on the shifter, there are these slots right here on each end, where if you flip it on the bottom, you just unscrew each of the end caps. Those end caps come off, you slide your T-nuts in, and then you put your caps back on, and in that way you can adjust your height however you want. It's gonna be, up or down. Provided that you kind of avoid this here. And that's going to be about it. Once you tighten it in, it's going to be very solid. So it's a very simple process, and I'm hoping it won't take long here. But I just wanted to kind of go over what you got in the box here. And I talked earlier about the screws that actually clamp these two pieces together. So this is what they look like. Pretty simple screws, a little bit of a washer on it, crush washer. So what will you need to actually complete this? Well, you're going to need, of course, the shifter, the mount, and in terms of tools, you're only going to need some Allen keys. You're going to need 3 Allen keys. You're going to need a 4mm, a 3mm, and a 2mm. The Fanatec, actually, you need the 2mm to get the corner caps off of the shifter. And then between the 3 and the 4, you're going to use these for some of the screws. So it's fairly simple, really easy process. So with that being said, let's just go ahead and get into it. The first thing I would recommend doing with your Playseat challenge, of course, so you want to remove your 2 straps here. Just kind of get them out of the way. You want your mounting surfaces to be as clear as possible. And then I just like removing this one just to have a bit more flexibility with however I want to mount it. So easiest thing to do, of course, first would be this more horizontal surface, because you're going to have one that's going to be it's going to be more horizontal here, and you're going to mount the second one here. It's going to be more on an angle. But it doesn't really matter if this is on an angle like so, because once you put the T-nut on here, the T-nut is going to be vertical, and then you're going to tighten it in, and this is all going to stay put, and it's actually, and that way your shifter will remain vertical. One recommendation is make sure that your latch here for your wheel mount is actually in place and solid, because if you undo this a little too much, this thing has the tendency to walk this way and it will interfere with your mounting surface. So you just want to make sure that you got this where you want it. Lock it in place, and then we're good to go. Okay, so just a quick pro tip. One thing you want to do, you want to make sure of is when you're installing this, you don't want to tighten these two down immediately. You just kind of want to get them started just a little bit, and then you want to make sure you adjust it to the entire mount as to where you want it. And the other thing I want to say is with these types of two-piece clamps or mounts, you always want to make sure that you are tightening both screws at the exact same turns, or as close as to exact as you can get it. Because if you tighten one side more than the other, these two surfaces won't mate flush, and it may be a little crooked here and there, which could cause all kinds of issues when it comes to torquing this thing down. You could split your material, you could snap a bolt, and that's the last thing you want to do when it comes to this. Yep, so that's starting to get a little tight. So right there, I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna torque this down just yet. Yeah, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, hey, you got a bit of a gap here, but like I said before, this thing is still fairly loose and I can kind of move it back and forth. I can adjust it how I need it and get it lined up, and then I can torque it all down towards the end. And also, the thing you have to keep in mind is that the rubber itself, once I torque these two bolts down, or tighten them down, I keep saying torque, once I tighten these two down, the rubber on the inside is actually going to compress. And the more it compresses, the more it's going to get a tighter grip around this rod here, which is going to prevent this lateral movement as we see here, that rotation. So that's what you want to go for. Also, as you're doing this, you want to make sure that you can still rotate your latch here. You don't want to put this so far up on the latch itself where you can't rotate it. But just make sure that you can still rotate it and you still have a little bit of wiggle room here to tighten it down. So this one's pretty good right now. I'm going to go ahead and get started on the next one. So since I have no true way of knowing exactly where I'm going to mount this for it to line up on the shifter, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to actually just kind of hand tighten these just enough to get started. And then I'm going to work on the shifter, get my T-nuts in place, and then kind of adjust everything, get it set up, and then come back and tighten it all down. Okay. So like I just said a moment ago, see how this one, I kept this one fairly loose so I can move it to get it to wherever I need it. And then once we get that all lined up, we'll be good to go. So now I'm going to take the sleeves that come with the mounts. I'm just going to pop these in like so, like that. I'm going to take the screws and washers, do the same, just kind of pop them in place. Okay, and we're good to get started on the shifter. So as I stated before with the shifter, as you can see on the bottom here, you have these two end caps. You just want to make sure that you have your shifter in the correct orientation. So since I'm going to be simulating left-hand drive, I'm going to have my shifter on the right side of the Playseat challenge, of course. So therefore, I'm going to work on I'm going to take off the caps on the left side of the shifter, so that way it can be mounted like so. So just like I said before, it's fairly easy. You just take your 2mm Allen wrench and just undo this guy and that one there, and you're good to go. So the end caps just come right off very easily. After that, we want to take our T-nuts here. And now the T portion, the smaller portion that sticks up from the T-nut, you actually want that to be sticking up because that's where you're going to actually drive your screws in. So I'm just going to take that and slide it in like so. Slides in really easily, as you can see. Going to put my end cap back on, take the screw. Just going to get that one hand tight for now. Just a few threads, like so, and then rinse and repeat for the other side. Now that we have our T-nuts in place, we can go ahead and get this thing adjusted on the Playseat Challenge. So the way that I'm going to actually do this, and you're gonna have to play around with it a little bit. I'm actually going to have this horizontal like so, and I'm going to actually get this screw started here. And once this one is started, then I'm gonna swing it around like so and line this up to where the other one is and then get that started. So that way I can get it all adjusted instead of trying to guess and hold it up and move it. I just found that that method to me is at least a little bit easier. And then since this is still loose, I can kind of rotate this out of the way for now. And then I can go ahead and line this up to where I need it. Just a few turns, and as you can see, it's already holding. So since that's holding, now I'm going to go this way. And now you might have to get a little creative with how you're going to see this last one. Actually, no, you're not. You can just kind of hold it up as far as you can, because gravity is going to pull that T all the way down to the bottom. And then you just line it up and screw it in. At least get a few turns. So as you can see, you just have to play with it until you get it right. Okay, there we go. And then now the T-nuts, as we can see, the T-nuts are holding. And now, since I didn't tighten everything down, now what I can do is actually go ahead and get this adjusted to where I want it exactly, and then go ahead and tighten everything down to exactly the way I want it. So I'm going to actually work with this one a little bit now, because I know that this mount isn't going anywhere. But since this one is still fairly loose, it can move around quite a bit. And if I want my shifter to be vertical, I'm gonna have to kind of work with it a little bit. So now I'm going to tighten each one of these screws little by little, like maybe do 2 turns on one, 2 turns on the other, and until this actually gets tight enough to where I'm confident it won't back out. All right, so that one's getting pretty good. So now that this mount is not completely tight, but it's just about where I want it, now what I need to do is tighten the screw back here where the T-nut is, so that way I can make sure that the shifter itself is vertical. And then go ahead and get your correct Allen key and tighten down as you need to. So as you can see, it's a very simple process. It's just a bit tedious. You just want to make sure that you're not tightening everything down as tight as you can get it. You want to do a little bit at a time for each of the mounts, a little bit of time for each of the screws, little by little, until you get it right. Because once this thing is attached, it's going to be good. It's not going to move. And that's what you want, especially with the shifter like this. It definitely has more required force to shift than something, say, like the Logitech G Shifter. You're going to want to make sure that this thing doesn't move. And there you go. This thing is pretty solid. But you know what? I feel like it can be a little tighter. So I am going to actually tighten this one down a little bit more. So remember, like I said before, as I'm tightening these bolts down, the rubber in between is actually compressing. The good thing about this is if this isn't tight enough for you, you can always pop the 2 of these off. You can always leave the rest of it mounted the way it is, but just pop the top off, change the rubber inserts on both the top and bottom, then put it all back together, tighten it back down, and be good to go. Now that we have that done, the only thing you need to really do at this point is just put your straps back. So there you go. It's a fairly simple process, as you all see. And you know, once you actually get it together, it's fairly solid, like I said before. I think that personally, I may swap out at least one of the rubber mounts for the thicker rubber. It's very solid, but I will say that if I try to shift here in the 7th gear, I get a little bit of as you can see, it dips down a little bit. So that lets me know that I'm not getting the proper amount of grip that I could be getting if I go just a tad thicker, and then I can tighten the bolts down a little bit more. But overall, I'm very happy with this thing. I mean, it's minimal movement. You're going from even reverse to 6th gear. Very minimal movement, and it stays in place. And I highly recommend the Lowdown Shifter if you all haven't gotten their products before. I mean, they're very well made and really easy to get. They're very affordable. Like this one was 30 pounds. which came out to be about 35 US dollars. And then once you add in your shipping costs, it bumps it up to about a total of about 50 bucks. But in my opinion, it's completely worth it. Really digging the craftsmanship of the mounts here, and they're very solid and they're very professional. They mount directly to the Playseat challenge. So that about wraps this one up. And if you all found this video helpful, a like and a subscribe would be very much appreciated because it does help this channel grow. If you haven't already, go check out the products over at the Lowdown Shifter. I've included a link in the description below so you can go and check them out. And I gotta say, I'm very satisfied with this. And once again, thank you all for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one.